Welcome back to another episode featuring a conversation with my dear friend and automotive legend, Alex Roy. Brought to you by APiDA Online, this is Offtrack.
But going back to what you're saying, insurance companies are going to offer discounts to people who buy automated cars.
Yeah.
Obviously. And charge a unfortunately draconian premium to anyone who wants to drive themselves. So driving oneself will become a rich man's hobby. Now, as long as there's anyone in a human-driven car on the road, there are going to be speed limits. And those speed limits will then are going to be determined by the safe. In fact, you know something? I'm just talking. I haven't even considered this question until now. If you had 100% automated cars, you could probably raise the speed limits. Could be raised.
Right.
However, if there's a single human-driven car on the road, speed limits have to be set at some threshold. So, speed limits will never go up. In fact, they're going to probably. They may go, but they can't be too low because you don't want the human-driven car to impede the flow of the automated cars. So they'll stay the same. But it's going to become so expensive to own your own car. It'll be like eventually. I mean, I don't know how many decades it'll be. Logic suggests that owning a manually driven car, a human-operated car, is going to be like owning a horse. Like it'll be for collectors, and then of course. They're never going to want to drive them in an area where there are automated lanes, ever. They're going to drive them on country roads. They're going to keep them. It's just a huge liability. You're going to keep them outside of major cities.
Just like you wouldn't want to drive a horse in New York. I mean, I don't know.
Actually, I do.
Okay.
I totally want to ride a horse.
Have you ever ridden a horse?
Badly twice.
I've done it badly twice too, and I never want to do it again.
Well, if nobody else had one, I'd want to do it every day. That's why Morgan's in business. It's true.
It just. Imagine the worst, for those of you who haven't ever been horseback riding, imagine the worst suspension in a car ever made. Like if it was just made from girders and concrete. And then make it so when you turn the steering wheel, it does nothing. It just does whatever the hell it wants to do. And then it shits every, 10 or so minutes.
Just like driving a Morgan.
It's
just like driving.
Exactly like driving a Morgan.
It's amazing they don't actually make a car that looks like a horse. I don't know.
All you need is a three-legged horse, and there you go, Morgan.
Automated.
Just tie its hind legs together.
Jack Baruth. I was asking Jack Baruth his opinion about automated cars, and he was saying he's saying, well, automated driving is, I think, what's called an NP problem, and his exact lines were, how do you weigh souls? And so the question of, automated car comes up on. A tree and a busload of nuns and a child runs out in front of the car, what does it do? And, you wouldn't trust a human to make that decision. And yet humans must decide what the logic of the car will do in those situations. That's, nightmare scenario. But it's going to happen, which is why, and the fact that it could happen is why the maximization and the acceleration of accelerated cars becoming ubiquitous is going to be safer for all. It's like automated cars are like vaccines for cars. Automated cars are like vaccines. There's a herd effect which guarantees the safety of everyone who's vaccinated. But if one person is not vaccinated, if one kid in a school, he can infect others. And if 3 or 4 are not vaccinated, you can have a real problem. There's an article just the other day about parents of a kid who was recovering from cancer. He's pushing for a bill in California to become law, he hopes, barring kids who are unvaccinated from going to school. This is the same thing with automated cars. This is the battle you're going to have because people, in automated cars are doing it for their own safety, and yet they're going to feel less safe.
Are they? I don't think they're doing it for their own safety. I think people get safety kind of into their own heads as this is the most important aspect of driving a car, and I think they're going to do it for one, convenience. That's the convenience.
An extra hour of sleep?
Well, not an extra hour of sleep. It's just something where I want to get some work done before I get into the office. Or
they're really most of them are going to be checking Facebook, napping.
Right. But that's still a convenience. Like I'm going to have
convenience.
I'm going to have another 45 minutes on my way to work instead of honking at the asshole in front of me.
The man who buys his wife an automated car. because he's worried about her safety and the safety of the kids that are going to school in that car. All right, he is absolutely, absolutely, some guy out there is going to go out the first time a human driver smacks his wife in an automated car, and he's going to go out and lobby for a bill to be passed that limits the hours that human-driven cars can operate, and then the locations. And then you're going to see the effects, the market forces and political pressure to limit the freedom of human-driven cars to operate in location and in hours of the day.
I think
and that's going to drive their prices up.
I think it might go the other way. I mean, you can limit if the autonomous cars are doing so well that they put everything else kind of on the back burner. So I think you'll see limits on where any other cars can drive.
I think we're talking about the same thing.
I think we are.
So, there are people who complain about loving riding horses, and, where are they now? They're living in Connecticut.
Right.
Anyway, I can't put a timetable on it, but you can see in HOV lanes, they exist, and they will certainly evolve. Simultaneously, you're going to have, before you have pure automated lanes, which I think you will have, you're going to have lanes which just cost you more. I'm amazed that in California you can't, because it's California and they're communists. I'm amazed that it's amazing that the HOV lane is not something wealthy people can pay into. Well, they can, just not legally. They pay into by buying a Prius, which is not a cost savings in the end.
Can you do it with a Tesla?
Oh, I'm sure you can.
If you buy a Tesla, that's no emissions. So
I'm sure you can. Anyway, this, yes, it's sad. I mean, but it kind of in the same topic, consider that over time, as privacy erodes in this country, you have black boxes that, in your cars recording data. Then you have the cars become networks, and the government pushing for access up to the cars. Combined with the ubiquity of police surveillance cameras, it'll become, tolls will become not just, by plate, they'll become fully automated, not partially or passive or even active. They'll just become your build. And you can, and then we're already there in a fractured method, different states, different locations.
Right.
Then eventually, like in countries like France, where it's already really, the ball's already rolling, they have automated ticket generation, not just from cameras, but as the location of vehicles is known, the speed is known at all time. There might even be discounts offered to drivers who allow their car data to be streamed.
Well, you have that now with insurance companies, like the Progressive, like a little, I don't even know what the hell it's called. It's like a little OBD2 puck. Right.
So once the government has a handle on that, then people are going to be, get tickets. And then the people who want the discount and want to save money will be the first people to get automated cars.
But aren't those people just signing up to hinder their own freedom?
Yeah, but to them, their notion of freedom is the freedom to, they're dropping the burden of driving because they don't enjoy it, and to pick up the pleasure of Facebook because that's all they're
which is weird because
intellectually capable of.
Right, but which is weird because that's also a hindrance of freedom, because they're putting all their personal information out there for people to people to farm and sell them stuff based on that information.
The reality, most people, the reality is the erosion of privacy for most people is really irrelevant to most people, because the greatest crime they'll ever commit in their lives is smoking pot. That's really it. Which is the march of legalization moves glacially forward in this country. So that too will become irrelevant, and that's why people don't fight for their privacy as much as they should.
I think privacy within our lifetimes, maybe within 20 years or something, I think that will be sort of a concept that's left by the wayside, because with everything is kind of ubiquitous now. Everyone knows everything. People post voluntarily, what they're eating, where they're going, where they're staying, how everything. Like they post reviews on what they did. There's gonna be a time when you just put a chip in your brain and that's it. You're just logged in, and I think that privacy for a lot of people after our generations. Well, maybe not the next one, but the next one after that. Yeah, it's going to be
irrelevant.
Yeah, it's going to be like what's privacy? Like you just have thoughts to yourself. Like, well, why do you have thoughts to yourself? You can just communicate way better to another person.
I think you're probably right. Well, as long as the state of Texas remains in the United States, there will be privacy in this country. And although I'm very much a Yankee, God bless Texas, if only for that reason.
Right.
Although it's incredible to think that, you know, how much popular music comes from England.
Right.
And yet England is a country who does not have a Bill of Rights.
Well, they follow the Magna Carta, right? I mean, like what are they?
Okay, yes, but they don't have a Bill of Rights as we understand it to exist. And it is, I mean, it is hilarious, and I don't want to get into politics. It's hilarious to talk about, you know, when people refer to, you know, the American government being too big, you know, relative to other countries. The United States remains one of the freest countries in the world, if not the freest, relative to other countries. People who say that have never lived in a country, ever, which actually had actual fascist governments. And ask anyone who immigrated here, you know.
Like me.
Yeah, and well, my parents, you know, my father, you know, my mother grew up in communist East Germany and, you know, was born under the Nazis. My father, you know, escaped, came to America and joined the U.S. Army. And, you know, I wish I could ask him today because he died when I was too young. But he'd be the first one to say, he was like, we don't ever need to talk about where I came from or what my religious beliefs are. I'm an American.
Exactly.
And, you know, that is, by the way, something that didn't really dawn on me until I was on the gumball in North Africa in 2004. So the war had just started. And the majority of Americans who'd signed up for the gumball dropped out because gumball was going from Paris to Morocco and then back to Cannes to France. So here we are. So a lot of Americans got really scared of going to an Arab country. And, you know, I spoke French and I'd been there as a kid for like a day with my parents. But I was like, you know something? I have this feeling that it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And everyone was terrified. So I went. And we broke down in some small town in the Atlas Mountains. And most people there spoke French. And so we spoke. Every person there, I'm driving this blue BMW M5 with New York plates. We're dressed like NYPD. And, you know, and behind us like a Ferrari and some English guys. And they're terrified. Terrified of the locals. These people could not have been cooler. And every last one of them was thrilled to meet an American. You know,
is it one of those things where like the bad apple spoils the bunch? Is it because people have this this crazy, I don't know if it's xenophobia, but when I went to Dubai and everyone was super nice. I mean, it was one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, and it is a westernized place. But when you go to the places that aren't as westernized, they're nice. They're very they're cordial. It's just like if you were talking to another human being, because that's exactly what you're doing.
Yes.
And then people are scared of like, oh, well, they have these customs. Like, people have different customs and people have different religious beliefs and whatnot. But you have to kind of weed through that to find a common ground. And when you find a common ground, you're pretty much the same people. You can talk to them on anything.
That is true. Well, you know, it's like Maslow's pyramid of self-actualization.
Right.
You know, we all start wanting food and shelter, and then we go up the pyramid. And sometimes people go to the top and they say, and then they need to buy a Veyron.
All right, that's enough for today. But what did you think? You can leave a comment down below to give us your view, or you can join us next time when we continue the conversation. Be sure to follow Alex on his YouTube channel, especially if you like some insightful commentary about some seriously cool cars. And you can check out APiDAonline.com for DIY guides, epic builds, and videos just like this updated daily. If you'd like to support APiDA Online, you can do so by clicking through the Amazon banner on our homepage. It costs you nothing, and it lets us keep making articles and videos like this for you for free. And on that note, always remember, life is just too short to drive boring cars.